Hello and happy Wednesday to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am here with the Emory Alumni Association in the Miller Ward House in Atlanta, Georgia on a very bright sunny fall day. Excited to bring this webinar to you guys and would love to hear any topics that you're interested in hearing as we start gearing up for the new year. We are going to have a great menu of items that you can enjoy digitally and in person. With that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our webinar today. As you all know, it feels like we've already just sped right into the holiday season, and now's the time where we start going to holiday parties and holiday gatherings, and you might start thinking about maybe some career plans and changes for the year ahead. So Hallie is going to bring us some great advice on how to navigate those conversations of figuring out who do you need to talk to, how do you need to kind of have these informational interviews in these social gatherings and make the most of it and be really productive in your conversations. So with that, I want to introduce Hallie Crawford, who is our certified career coach and national career expert. She's based here in Atlanta. Her company, HallieCrawford.com, and a team of coaches have helped thousands of people identify and transition into their dream career, effectively navigating their job search and enhancing their performance at work. She's regularly featured as a career expert in media, including U.S. News, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, CNN, and Fox Business News. Please check out all of her services at HallieCrawford.com. And I'll also be sending some follow-up information in our email to everyone who registered to connect with Hallie. And she always is very generous in offering a complimentary session, and I encourage you to take her up on that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Hallie. Hallie, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. And it is a sunny but very fall, chilly day here in Atlanta. So I've been outside just a little bit, and we're definitely heading into the holidays, as Lane said. And we wanted to do kind of a spin on the informational interview, if you will, and networking, and how to conduct these more effectively and generally, but also give you some advice for how to handle them more effectively during holiday time as well, because people tend to have a lot of assumptions and different kind of beliefs about networking during the holidays and job searching too. So we are going to talk about 5 ways to conduct successful informational interviews, but give you some holiday kind of specific tips as well as part of this. So as Lane said, I'm Hallie Crawford. I'm a certified career coach based here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm one of the partner coaches with Emory, which is a fantastic partnership. And this is on the slide here is our website. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you all first is that I do understand that most people aren't a big fan of networking. I totally get that. And job searching, whether it's during holiday time or New Year or any other time, it can be one of the most stressful things that we have to do. And I understand that this can seem intimidating, not just because we help with clients with this topic or issue all the time, and we've been doing so for just over 19 years now. I know I sound like I'm 12, I'm actually 46. And it's not just because we assist others with this, but I get that it can seem intimidating myself personally, because I'm actually more introverted than extroverted. So even after being in business for over 19 years and having our reputation in our industry be incredibly positive, et cetera, I still have to push myself sometimes to network or reach out to people for partnerships. Today, I'm much less shy after having practiced this over time and finding ways that it works for me. And that's part of what we want to do for you all today, is help you identify ways that you can network more effectively, but still feel like you're being true to yourself. Okay. And I've learned to put myself out there and use my moments of being extroverted to my advantage when I need to do those. And I want you to know that you can do that too. So using the process that we outline here today, and these, by the way, are the same steps and advice and tips that we give to all of our clients, this will help you overcome any fears or negative thinking about informational interviews and give you specific steps that you can take to make them happen. So if you take a look at this next slide, here is our agenda. We're going to talk first about what informational interviews are and how to define them. Next, we're going to talk about the obstacles that we typically find our clients encounter or experience and the reasons why they don't conduct informational interviews and how to overcome those. Then we'll talk about the 5 ways to conduct them successfully, especially during the holidays. And at the very end, we will have some time for Q&A. And we'll get to as many of your questions as we possibly can. Please know that if you do have additional questions, you can feel free to email us at admin@halliecrawford.com if we don't get to your question today, or even if you have questions in a couple weeks later on down the line, we would be happy to answer those. And for any of you that would like to have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation from today as well, so that you don't feel like you have to be frantically writing everything down, please don't hesitate. Just email us at admin@halliecrawford.com and we will get that over to you. All right, so let's talk first about how we define informational interviews. Most of you have probably heard about these before, but sometimes our clients will have assumptions about them, and they may have conducted them, but not as effectively as they could have, and they're not sure, what went wrong. So the bottom line here on this slide is an informational interview is typically a one-on-one conversation with someone who is in an industry or in a role that you'd like to pursue. So by the way, informational interviews can be conducted with people who are in a specific role that you're interested in and would like to get into, or that you're trying to vet out and find out if it would be the right fit for you long term. But they're also valuable to conduct them with people that are in industries that you're curious about as well, or that you want to break into in terms of your job search. So either of these are kind of fair game, if you will, for informational interviews. Why do we conduct them? There are different reasons to why we conduct informational interviews, and they're listed here on the slide. The first one would be to decide on your career path. If you're one of those people that is like, gosh, I'm not really, feeling as fulfilled in my current role and in my current industry, and you would like to make a career change in the new year, informational interviews can be a great, really important way to help you decide on your career path or determine what the next career steps need to be for you to make that happen, and then how to implement those. The second reason why you might conduct an informational interview is for job seekers. It's a way to network your way into an organization that you would like to get your foot in the door, or a specific industry. It's also a way, by the way, to practice your interview skills in a lower pressure kind of situation, right? And then finally, one of the things that we always tell people to ask people they're conducting an informational interview with is to ask them, how do I need to put my best foot forward in my job search? So an informational interview is another opportunity or a way for you to learn how to put your best foot forward to either get your foot in the door in a specific industry or organization itself, or for a specific role. Okay, so those are the reasons why we might conduct them. What it is, an informational interview is an opportunity in a lot of ways for you to find out what it's really like to work in a specific industry or field, or in a specific role. And it's, in some cases, discover career opportunities that exist at a company or with other organizations. So you can learn a little bit more about what the day-to-day is like, for example, in a career path that you're considering but you're not totally sure about yet. Another reason why to conduct these is to get an inside perspective, for example, on an organization and what their culture is like, and what the organization's mission and values are, and if they're really living by those values, for example, you can get that inside perspective before you accept a prospective job offer. Informational interviews are also a great way to make a connection within a specific industry and begin to create and expand your network in that field that you want to get into. It's also a way to find other people to network with, so it's kind of like one person leads to the other. And finally, to practice your interview skills with less pressure, okay? So these are other reasons why you might conduct an informational interview. We're going to do our first poll here, Lane. If we could pull that up, that would be great. One of the questions we wanted to ask you all today is, how many of you have conducted an informational interview? And I wanted to add kind of this caveat to it too, like successfully. And what I mean by that is you felt really good about it, and it led to some opportunity for you, even if it wasn't a job offer necessarily, it led to more connections. So we're curious, not just, okay, yes, I've checked the box and conducted these, but if you've conducted them in a way that you would deem as successful. So if you could answer that poll question for us, that would be great. And then Lane, if you could just read me the results. I can never find them on the screen. That would be awesome, even when I'm
Yeah,
wearing my
sure. Sometimes they hide from us. We're about 75% there. We'll just wait for a couple more responses.
Perfect.
So it looks like we are right about 30% have never conducted an interview and about 70% have.
Okay, good. I'm glad that people have. That's good. So what we would hope for today, obviously, is for you to get some additional advice on how to conduct them even more effectively. Because as I said at the beginning, and thanks, Lane, for sharing, that was perfect. As I said at the beginning, a lot of our clients, fortunately, over time, what I've noticed is people do know about these, and they understand what they are to a certain extent, and they've usually conducted them, at least a few of them. But if they've conducted them really effectively and successfully, and it's led to something positive for them, that's usually still a low number, unfortunately. And one of the things that I wanted to mention here at the bottom of this slide before we move to the next one is, just to clarify, this is an opportunity for you to practice your interview skills with a little bit less pressure. But as we're going to talk about today, you still need to take these obviously very seriously and be sure that you're putting your best foot forward when you're speaking with someone, because you want to make that positive impression. Obviously, they're going to be more likely to help you and assist you and pass your name along if you do that, okay? So we talked a little bit about what an informational interview is, and here are a couple slides about what it is not, just to be sure you don't make any assumptions, okay? So first of all, an informational interview is not a chance for you to tell someone everything about yourself and talk their ear off and, take too much of their time. You need to treat these as professional business meetings as an interview, just like we talked about before. You need to be professional. Of course, it is a little bit less pressure because the person that you're speaking with most likely, or, in some cases they may have a job opening that you just don't know about, but most likely, as we said, it's not the time for you to ask for a job, it's asking for information, okay? So an informational interview is always something, and you want to be clear with the people that you're asking for their time, that you want to be clear with them that I'm asking for information, not a job. Okay, so it's not the chance or a time to ask for a job right then and there, unless the conversation seems to be going in that direction, or if the person that you're speaking with does have a job opening, then yes, you can shift it to that direction, but that's not what you start out with at the very beginning. And finally, it's not a time to slack off or be overly casual with the meeting or casual about your career goals. You need to be prepared to answer some questions from them about what you want and why you're looking for this next position, okay? One of the things that we have found with our clients is it is still, even though, like I said, more people are conducting these, it is still one of the most underutilized tools in people's job search. And people need to leverage these more effectively and conduct more of them, because it is a law of numbers. You're going to have a certain number of people that aren't even going to respond to you. If you get, for example, a 10% return rate to your request for informational interviews, that's a good start. That's a good number. So this is why you have to kind of cast your net wide and ask a lot of people for their time, because plenty of people will say either no or they'll ignore you. You just got to be realistic about it. So in terms of the obstacles, let's move to our second agenda item, and that's talking about the obstacles for informational interviews. 9 times out of 10, when we start with a career coaching client at the beginning of our program with them, they always will tell us they're their biggest obstacle. They're the ones that are getting in their own way. That's one of the questions that we ask them at the beginning, is what holds you back from achieving your career goals? And 9 times out of 10, they tell us it's them. It's not something external like you might think. Okay, so the obstacles that we see people encounter, or fears that they have, or concerns about informational interviews, are listed on this slide. Number 1, people will say, oh, those are for recent college grads and for young people. And I'm more senior in my career, so it doesn't make sense. That's weird. They might say, gosh, I'm too shy to do this. I don't feel confident enough to do so. They may not want to ask for help. They may feel like, I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm talking about, and that I have to get that help or advice from someone. And especially during holiday time, so many of our clients will say, well, I'm going to put my job search on pause or slow it down because no one hires during the holidays. And I want to address all of these in the next slide here as well. But I want to say something specifically first about the there for young people kind of obstacle or objection that people have. We had a client who worked at a very large construction firm here in Atlanta, and she was a senior VP. So not, she was senior in her career. And she conducted informational interviews. And one person in particular, at Kimberly Clark, she reached out to her. She was a second connection through someone she had known before at a previous job. And the woman gave her an hour of her time. And at the end of this, she said, more people should do informational interviews like this. And so I just want you to get, it was very successful and effective for her. And both of those people were much more senior in their career. And they both felt like it was a win-win situation. So they are not just for young people. Keep that in mind. And I can say this because, like I said, I'm 46 and I have to be okay with networking myself and asking for help when needed. So in terms of two of the obstacles that we wanted to address here from the previous slide is a lot of our clients will tell us, and as I said earlier, this is how I feel. And this book, The Introvert Advantage, has been incredibly helpful for me as someone who is more introverted than extroverted. So if you're one of those people, just by the way, if you feel like I'm too shy to do these or conduct them effectively, I don't feel like it takes too much energy because you're more introverted or for whatever reason, The Introvert Advantage is a great book to help you as an introvert understand how to put yourself out there, whether it's for networking purposes, personal purposes, or professional goals. It's just a great tool to help you still be who you are and not feel like you have to turn into somebody else in order to do this networking thing that we're talking about. So that's a great book to check out. And then the second objection, especially during the holidays, which again, we hear from all of our clients all the time, is that no one is hiring, like we said. So here's the deal, and here are reasons for you to continue your job search during the holidays, okay? Companies are starting to search now for positions in the new year. We have gotten clients tell us that they've gotten an uptick actually in terms of people looking at their LinkedIn profiles and reaching out to them to come in for interviews. So it doesn't slow down for everybody, okay? Companies that have a new budget in the new year, this is the time that they need to start looking. They're not going to wait until January 1. The second reason is that competition is low because all of your other competition or your peers are saying, oh, I'm just going to take the holidays off of my job search because it's not going to be effective and I don't feel like doing it. So you're the one that can stand out from the crowd that much more. Some managers prefer to work more often. Like some people are going to actually be in the office, and when it's, they may be a little bit less busy because, for their industry, the time during the holidays is a little bit slower. So some people and managers prefer to work when it's quieter. I felt that way when I had to go to a corporate office. It was actually nice for me to get some stuff done when people weren't interrupting me as much because less people were around. They're less busy in some cases, so they may have more time to talk to you or hire you. And then finally, holiday networking events, whether it's through your association for your industry or through your alumni association, or even for your organization, they tend to be a little bit like less pressure networking events. It's not the high pressure of, okay, we're going to do the speed dating networking type of thing. Like when it's a holiday event, a lot of people are a little bit more relaxed about the networking piece of it. So it can feel for you like it's a little bit less pressure. So these are reasons to not slow down your networking efforts during the holidays, but keep them consistent, the same, and in some cases, turn up the heat a little bit, okay? Why is networking important? And as part of networking, conducting informational interviews, it's because, as most of you probably know, that between 60 and 70% of the jobs that are secured or landed are secured and found originally through the hidden job market. And the hidden job market, again, as most of you have probably heard, are under unadvertised positions that are discovered or found through headhunters, recruiters, or through networking. And I'm sure most of you have attended, those traditional networking events. Informational interviews provide you another way to network with people really effectively, but not just be asking for, okay, what's another connection that you might have, or do you know anyone that's hiring, or are you hiring? But it's a great way to gather information about the next step that you need to be taking in terms of your job search or your career path and the goals that you need to achieve. So let's move to the 5 ways to conduct informational interviews and get to our action steps here. So we're going to talk today about connections and where to find them, talk about how to set up and ask people for informational interviews and exactly what to say. I'm going to give you a template of an email that you can use as actual text for how to ask people for an informational interview and how to prepare for them effectively, the ways to conduct them effectively, staying in touch with the person afterwards, and also how to stay organized. Because the best problem that we could have, right, is that we're conducting so many of these and we're talking to so many people that we really need an Excel spreadsheet to stay organized. And we do have one of those that we can share with you as well. So let's talk first about the first step here, and this is finding those connections and those people to conduct informational interviews first. So where can we find these people that we want to chat with and talk to? So first of all, if you take a look on the left-hand side of the slide here, we have clients go through friends, family members, and what we would call, like warm leads first, okay? Because those are the people that are most likely to help you out and give you the most time. And we should actually add to this list here, so go ahead and add that on your notes for me, is like former coworkers, peers at your organization, if you can trust them with confidentiality, okay? And here's the deal with kind of this first category, everyone, is that a lot of our clients will say, well, I don't know anyone who works in that field or that industry. And then in the next session, they come back to us and they said, well, I went through my phone, like you told me to do, literally, go through your contacts in your phone, everybody. You may think that, oh, I don't know anyone or whatever, but once you go through your contacts in your phone, every single client comes back to us in that next session and they'll say, oh, well, I forgot that my Uncle Al worked with somebody, blah, 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 at whatever corporation. Okay, so definitely go to warm leads first and literally do go through your phone, your contacts in your phone, because it will jog your memory about someone maybe that you forgot about, even if they're not in your contacts list. So we start with those warm leads first and ask them for the time, but we also ask them if they know anyone else that we should be conducting an informational interview with. So asking for that second connection. The next thing that you want to be doing for sure is looking through your LinkedIn connections. And you want to do this on a regular basis, not just with your first connections, everyone, but through your second and third ones as well. And you should do this at least once a month, give or take, just because your connections are going to be making new connections while you're not, on LinkedIn. And so you need to your list, so to speak, of second connections will be refreshed on a pretty regular basis. So you want to set a task for yourself to check into your second connections on a regular basis. If you're in active job search mode, I would do it about once a week because those people could be actively adding new connections to their roster. The next thing that we definitely want you to do is go back to your alumni association. And Lane did not pay me to say this. This is what we say to all of our clients. Our clients tend to forget our alumni association and the resources there. So whether it's their online database, that's something that you want to leverage. But I also want to remind you, too, that a lot of alumni associations are doing a much better job as well about expanding their LinkedIn groups, okay? And if you have Emory down in your LinkedIn profile, which you absolutely should, if it's listed there under education for you, and you type in LinkedIn/alumni, it will take you to the LinkedIn alumni page. And Lane, you guys, I'm assuming, have a LinkedIn page. How is that going so far?
We do. We have a great LinkedIn page under the Emory Alumni Association, and we've also launched Emory Connects, which is an Emory exclusive, kind of like a Emory exclusive LinkedIn that I will send a link out to everybody who's registered. So that way you can really do some good navigating, and that's got a great search bar so that you can put in any kind of skills or job areas that you're looking for, and connections will pop up to help you kind of identify good connectors.
Perfect. Great. Okay. So you all will get a link to that, and you really do want to leverage this because here's the deal, right? As we said a minute ago, you want to start with warm leads, friends, family, etc. The next kind of level, if you will, of warm lead is going to be fellow alumni. And if you put in the subject line of your email to them or your LinkedIn message, fellow Emory alum, they are going to be that much more likely to get back with you and give you time. Okay. So definitely check that out. Then we move to networking groups, association meetings, and especially holiday events or parties that your industry association or the new industry that you're looking into, any events that they may be having. And again, as we said before, these could be kind of lower pressure events that you could kind of try out if you feel a little bit less comfortable with this to meet more people, okay? Definitely consider social holiday events as networking opportunities as well, okay? And handle it appropriately, of course. That's not the first thing you're going to say to people, but it's so cliche, I realize, but tell everyone that you know that you're looking because you just don't know where a connection is going to come from. We have had clients get interviews from attending their spouse's cousin's wedding, and the uncle's firm was hiring and they got an interview, all the way to another client who, through their daycare provider for their son, one of the other kids, their parent worked at an architecture firm and they happened to be hiring. So networking really does happen everywhere. And again, you don't have to monopolize the whole conversation about it, but don't be afraid or hesitate to bring it up during social gatherings, okay? How you can conduct these informational interviews. If you look on the right-hand side of the slide here, shifting gears to talk about making these connections, but also how you might conduct these informational interviews, is it could be the in-person option. You could start talking to someone and actually begin an informal informational interview during the course of an event that you're attending this holiday season, okay? But aside from that, if you're setting them up more formally, they can be over the phone. You could use Skype, FaceTime, or Zoom, all different platforms in terms of, using video conferencing. They could be conducted via email. That is our lowest preference, by the way, because we would prefer for you to get either that FaceTime with someone or at least over the phone, because then you've made the connection. It's a much more well-established and stronger connection if you can meet that person in person if possible, or at the very least, talk to them over the phone. So email is the least preferable option, but in some cases, if people are just like, you know what, I don't have time during the holidays or whatever it is, you could say, totally understand. Do you mind if I ask you just a couple of questions now via email, and then maybe we could meet after the holiday season? That could be a way to follow up with them afterwards, but get the ball rolling right now. Okay, so those are the different kind of media, so to speak, that you can use to conduct informational interviews. All right, let's talk about step number 2, and that is to set them up. So after you've started a list of connections that you want to reach out to, you need to obviously set them up. So first of all, I can't say this strongly enough or often enough, let them know you're looking for information, not a job, and be really clear about that. And yes, you can say, I'd love to conduct an informational interview or like to conduct an informational interview with you if I could have, 15 to 20 minutes of your time in person or over the phone in the next several weeks or after the holidays. That would be great. One of the second things we tell our clients to do in terms of setting them up is to send them questions in advance. And the part of the reason why we say this is because when people have done this with me, they want to conduct an informational interview with me, and they send me those questions in advance. Can you imagine how much more impressed I am with that person than with people that don't? Not to bash the people that don't, but it makes you look that much more organized, and it lets them know that you're not going to take a ton of their time by asking them 20 questions. Sending them 4 or 5 questions in advance and letting them know up front, these are the questions I'd like to ask you, helps them prepare as well for how they want to answer. So I like that too, because it gives me time to think about what I want to, or what this person needs to know from me the most, and I can prepare so that I can use our time really wisely. And I feel like they're going to use our time wisely as well. finally, let them know that you intend to keep it brief. I wrote on the slide here 10 to 15 minutes. We usually actually have people say 15 to 20 just to be safe. But if, for example, the person is more, senior in their organization and you know that they're just not going to have a ton of time, you can use the 10 to 15 minutes instead as appropriate, okay? Be sure, though, that you're clear with them. So at the bottom of the slide here, be sure that you're clear with them when you get on the phone with them or when you meet them in person. Just kind of reiterate or confirm, if you will, how much time they have to meet with you. That ensures that you're handling the conversation professionally. It shows them that you're being mindful of their time, and it helps you prepare for how many questions you need to have ready to go. So the reason why we say at the bottom here, ask them how much time they have and be prepared for more time, is because we have had clients prepare for only about 20 minutes of talk time with the person, and the other person actually bookmarked an hour of time. You need to have additional questions just in case in your back pocket. So have those additional questions ready, but be mindful of the time and double check what it is and how much time they have in advance so that you handle things well and professionally. The next slide here is about setting up the informational interview and what we would call kind of, like the email formula, if you will. This is what you can say to people to introduce yourself and ask them for the time over the phone or in person. You want to introduce yourself first and give them a little bit of background, what your current position is and what you're looking for, what your goal is, and what kind of information you want to ask them for. You want to let them know how you found them, especially mentioning in the subject line of the email or the LinkedIn message, for example, where you got their name, what the referral source is, because that will ensure that they're more likely to open the email and respond to you, as we said earlier. We recommend to clients that they email or LinkedIn message people first and then call them to follow up if you don't hear back from them after about 5 business days, give or take. Now, if this is a warm lead, though, for example, and someone introduced you to this other person, it's okay to call sooner, a couple of days afterwards, because that person, you've got their name from a warm, source, so to speak. But when it's a cold lead, this is kind of the formula that we suggest. Reminder, let them know you're wanting an informational interview, and you can use that language, as we said. By the way, you want to also include times that you are available. This is a key step that a lot of our clients, when they first come to us, they don't do and they forget about. You need to make it easy on them. Don't make them hunt and peck in their, calendar for times and get back to you, and then you get back to them and it's back and forth. No, give them times right then and there. Here's some times I'm available in the next several weeks. If these happen to work for you, please let me know. And by the way, if you're conducting the informational interview over the phone, you call them. So make sure that you get their phone number. Don't make them call you. You're the one that's asking and needing the information. So you need to take the initiative. Okay. And then finally, in terms of holiday time too, one of the things you do need to keep in mind is it's okay in your email formula and your kind of setup when you ask them for time to reference, I understand that it is holiday time and that the next few weeks may be a little bit busy. I'm okay with waiting till early December or whatever is appropriate during that, whatever is going on during that time frame, okay? And be understanding with people if there is a slower response time due to the holidays. But this is all that we tell our clients. We just say, be more patient with people, and they may not respond to you as quickly. But that doesn't mean don't conduct these and don't reach out at all. Still reach out. Just be understanding, okay? I'm not going to read this email template to you because you can read it and request the PowerPoint later, as we said. But this gives you a basic template that you can use. You want to keep it short and sweet to make that introduction and ask for the time over the phone or in person to conduct that informational interview. And obviously you want to adjust this and change it based on your background, expertise, and what you're looking for. But this gives you kind of a template that you can use, copy and paste, okay? So as part of setting up and preparing for the informational interview, we want you to develop really good questions that you ask them during the course of your time with them. This will ensure that the time is used wisely, that you come across as prepared and professional, and that you took the time to prepare in advance as well. So here are some examples on the left-hand side and right-hand side of this slide here. And what you want to do, everybody, is you want to choose the questions that are going to be the most relevant, obviously, for your situation. And you need to ask them questions that they'll be able to answer. So this is why you need to think about them in advance and read about the other person online and their LinkedIn background and profile, because that will help you develop the right questions. There are some examples here. What are some of the trends in this field or industry that I need to know about and maybe need to be talking to people during the course of interviews? What do you like best and least about what you do? How can I put my best foot forward in my job search? What are companies in this industry looking for? What are some keywords that you need to be mindful of adding to your cover letter or your resume? These are some of the questions that you can ask during the course of your informational interview. You want to research the industry in advance of conducting the informational interview so that you do have a little bit of a sense of what some of the trends are. Software, for example, that's commonly used, some of the lingo or jargon and job titles that are out there. You don't want to go into the informational interview totally cold and not knowing anything about the industry. Brush up on it a little bit so that you look like you've taken the time because you care. Brush up a little bit on the company. Look at their website, their social media, any places that they've been mentioned in traditional media, the company that the person works for, so that you're able to speak about their organization, but also ask pointed, educated questions about what they do. Same thing for their role. What have their past job titles been? What's their background? Read some of the job openings that you're interested in so that you understand what some of the descriptions are, but the keywords and what the qualifications are, so that you can speak in a more educated way about that as well. And then obviously research the interviewer, the person that you're talking to, on LinkedIn, in order not just to understand their background for question purposes, but to find that common ground and also how you might be able to help them as well. Because that is one of the key things that we want to make sure that you ask them at the end is, this was so wonderful. Thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate it. How can I help you? Are there introductions I can make for you? Is there anything else I can do for you? Okay. So as we're thinking about setting up and preparing for informational interviews, I do realize that we're throwing a lot of information at you, kind of all at once here. And as Lane said, we always like to offer a free career strategy session to help you get advice on any goal, whether it's informational interviews like we're talking about today or anything else. The way to set that up is to email us at admin@halliecrawford.com. I would be happy to answer any other questions that you have, especially if you have a specific unique situation that you need to talk through a little bit more to find out how to wordsmith something or set up the informational interview correctly. So again, feel free to set that up if you're interested and need it. Let's move next to conducting the informational interview and how to do this correctly. So here are some basic but really important tips on the slide here. And what we've noticed is that a lot of our clients will have some of these in place, but they'll fall, some things will fall by the wayside. So a couple of words of wisdom here are obviously arrive early so that you're prepared and that you can offer, especially if you're meeting at a coffee shop or something like that, can I get you a cup of coffee or, tea or whatever it is? You should be offering to pay. And I know in some cases this may feel like, if you're not making any money right now or whatever it is, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, no, thank you so much. Let me treat you. But you should be the one that's offering. Don't let them make them, pick up the ball there by not offering. And if it's a phone call, obviously be there on time. Stick to the time that you all have agreed to. You're in charge of keeping track of the clock, not them. So you need to be paying attention to where are you at in time, and if you're getting close or when you're getting close to closing time, so to speak, bring that up and say, I know we're getting close to our ending time here. I just have one more question. Thank you so much. Dress professionally, especially if it's in person, but even if it's video conferencing, you want to do that too, obviously too. Have your resume and business cards handy if it's in person, and if it's not, ask them if it's okay to email your resume to them at the end, okay? Act like it's a real interview. As we said earlier, this is a little bit lower pressure, but you still want to put your best foot forward and come across as professionally as possible. And then finally, by the way, it is okay to have your questions written out on a piece of paper and a way to take notes. You're not expected to have every single thing memorized and be perfect in that way. It's okay to bring or have a notepad with you that has your list of questions as well as a place to write down the things that you all are talking about. Okay? By the way, don't just hand them your interview during the course of an informational interview. Ask them at the end if it is appropriate based on the conversation, if it's okay if you send it to them, or if they would like a hard copy. Don't just shove it at them. Kind of ask permission there based on the situation and make sure that that's okay with them. Also, in terms of conducting the informational interview, especially if you start talking to someone kind of impromptu at a holiday event, you want to be sure that for a holiday event or any networking event, of course, year-round, that you have your elevator speech prepared and ready to go and practiced. You want to make sure that you behave professionally at any holiday professional events that you attend. Obviously, don't drink too much. We tell our clients in some cases, because eating can kind of be fumbly when you're standing there, especially if it's, finger food. A lot of our clients will just eat, in advance so that they can spend more time chatting with people and not worry about that part of it. Also, dress professionally, obviously, too. That's critically important. Find a wingman or woman. I don't even know if that's the right way to say that. But one of the things, I wrote a recent article for U.S. News about having what we would call kind of like a sponsor or a support person with you at some of these networking events, that you actually ask them like, hey, I feel a little bit uncomfortable networking sometimes. Can you walk around with me a little bit at the beginning? And as we're talking to people, help kind of smooth the conversation out or make introductions for me or whatever it is. It's great to have someone go with you to some of these networking events because they can actually kind of talk you up a little bit. It's third-party recommendation when you're talking in a group. That's another way to leverage someone else who's a friend or coworker that can help you out. At these holiday events, approach people, and we want you to. Approach people you haven't spoken to before, or maybe if it's less appropriate to approach that person at work for whatever reason, at holiday events, it's much more laid back and relaxed. So this actually is an opportunity for you to reach out to and talk with people that you haven't been able to before. And we want to encourage you to kind of push yourself outside your comfort zone to do that. And then finally, when you're preparing for any of these holiday events, you want to prepare in advance too, not just with, okay, who are the people that I would like to connect with or talk to, and how many connections would I like to make, and, for what purpose, but identify and think about 3 things that you can say to people that can add value to their job, advice that you could give someone, or what's going on with a project that you're currently working on, and some of the new things that you've learned that can add value to the other person. That will make a great impression when you're speaking with them. Okay. And then finally, going back to if we're conducting a more formal one-on-one informational interview, at the very end, kind of as you're, closing things out in conclusion, you want to make sure that you ask them these 3 questions, okay? Number 1, you want to always ask them, how can I help you? And by the way, don't feel badly if there's not a ton of things you can help them with right now. It's not quid pro quo right this second. You may be able to help them with something later on, okay? And that's okay. Ask them also, is there anyone else that you think it would be helpful for me to speak to? And if that's the case, would you mind sending an email introduction to them where you are copied on that? This is really critical, everyone. Too many of our clients, when we start with them, they'll say, yeah, the person said, send me your resume and I'll keep you in mind. And that's it. That's way too passive. The likelihood of that going anywhere, unfortunately, is pretty low. People are busy. What you ideally want someone to do after an informational interview, if they have people that they would be willing to introduce you to, and that's an if, not everyone will, but ideally you want them to send an email to the 2 of you where you are copied on it so that the other person is much more likely to respond, and then you have their information to contact them to follow up. And finally, you want to ask them, can I stay in touch with you? What is the best way to do that? And what are your holiday plans? Is it best for me to follow up with you, in early December or in the new year, or whatever works best? So touch base with them on holiday plans as well, so that you understand good timing for that follow-up. Step number 4 is to stay in touch with the connections that you're making during the course of your informational interviews. Obviously, this is the whole point of this whole thing. They can't just float off into the ether and then you don't say anything to them again. Immediately, I like people to send an email right away and also a handwritten thank you note, okay, and send your resume as appropriate. I do like both. Just say different things in those two things, but a handwritten thank you note helps you stand out from the crowd. Make sure that you connect with them on LinkedIn and write a message inside of there. Thank you again for meeting me, something, along those lines. Follow up with any referrals that they gave you immediately and keep each person posted on your progress along the way. The person who referred you, you want to let them know how it's going with the networking with the other person. Send them a holiday card if that's appropriate for their religious beliefs, et cetera, whatever their belief system is. But this is a great time, by the way, if you take a look at the bottom. Checking in with your informational interview connections is really critical, and staying in touch with them, whether it's every couple of months, once a month, whatever you guys decide at the end of the conversation. But one of the things that our clients will do, which we think is fantastic, is the end of the year and holiday time is a great time to reach out to any of the connections that you have just to say happy holidays, but also any specific people who have really helped you with your job search, to reach out and say, thank you again for your assistance this year during my job search. Sending people an article as well, just kind of by the way, at the end here at the bottom of the slide, sending people an article that might be of interest to them, that's another good way to stay in touch, okay? Okay, so this one is, hold on guys, let me just move, my slide wasn't moving forward, I apologize about that. So step number 4, staying in touch still. Again, as we said before, check in every 2 to 3 months. This is going to vary again based on what you guys talk about and how quickly you need to move forward in your search. But one of the things that one of our clients did, and she actually did this in the new year, if you take a look at the bottom of our slide here, she did this in the new year and sent all of her connections like a holiday, New Year, thank you, note, and said, thank you so much for your assistance this past year during my search. And people actually responded to her. Everyone did, and said, thank you so much for reaching out. They were really grateful for the fact that she reached out to them. So the holiday times actually offer you another way to reach out to people and another reason to get in touch with them, to update them on your search. It can be a handwritten note. It could be an email. It could be a phone call. You could post something on LinkedIn that goes out to all of your connections. And for those people that have helped you enormously, you may want to consider sending them a gift card like Starbucks or Amazon or something like that. On this next slide here is a thank you note template that you can copy and paste and use to thank the informational interviewer for taking the time with you, okay? And then in our final step here, and we do have our second poll at the very end, this is our second and our last poll before we start to move to Q&A here, is to stay organized during the course of your networking efforts, okay? Especially during the holidays where you may be interacting with a lot of people. You want to take a moment each week to stay organized and maintain an Excel sheet to help you track the contact information of the people you've connected with, the dates of contact and connection, the information that was shared and their holiday plans so you can follow up, any other personal information that they may have shared with you that you can check in on later on as a way to touch base with them. You want to keep track, obviously, of any referrals they give you, any next follow-up action items that you all discussed. And by the way, we do want you to update your sheet and keep it up to date at least once a week. If we can pull up this next poll here, Lane, that would be great. What we're curious about with this one is how many of you have a daily and weekly schedule for your job search. And we want you to have actually an Excel sheet, everyone, that you use, and I like Excel, by the way, versus Word, for example, to keep track of your job search networking, because believe me, you will get confused about who said what. All right, and
All right,
Lane,
we've
if
got
you could.
good responses coming in.
Awesome.
Give it just another couple of seconds.
No problem.
It looks like this is a good audience for this webinar, so about 80% of people do not have a daily or weekly schedule.
Gotcha. Okay. Good to know that you're not alone, everybody, but we want you to make changes to this. So one of the things I did want to mention, and Lane, thanks for sharing, that was perfect, is that we do actually have a free job search worksheet we'd be happy to give to you. This is the worksheet that we give to our clients to help them effectively not just track their networking efforts, but also create a schedule for yourself, and a weekly schedule and monthly schedule, honestly, too. It helps you track all of your job search efforts as well. And if you're not, for whatever reason, in active job search mode, and let's say you're networking to, secure a promotion, or for a different reason, like identify what my next career goal is, you can still use this worksheet as well. So just email us at admin@halliecrawford.com if you'd like a copy of that free worksheet. Happy to share that with you. All right, so that was step number 5. Those were our 5 steps to conduct informational interviews effectively. Now we are moving to taking action, and I am watching the time. Lane, I can go to the top of the hour so that we can try to get in as many questions as possible. I wanted to start to close out and go to Q&A here with this quote from Michael Jordan. Successful people, guys, by the way, it's not that they didn't have any obstacles to overcome. They always did just as much as anybody else does. But it's about, if you're trying to achieve something, there's always going to be roadblocks. It's about not letting them stop you. If you run into a wall, like he says on this slide here, this is great, don't turn around and give up. Figure out how to climb it, go through it, or work around it, okay? So we want you to get out your pen and paper right now, please, and identify 2 action steps that you will take in the next week to begin to conduct effective informational interviews. Please feel free to share these steps online for greater accountability, but also go ahead and start entering questions into our chat feature here as well, because we're going to move to that. As you are formulating your questions, everybody, just as a reminder, one of your action steps can be, and I highly recommend doing the free career strategy session, admin@halliecrawford.com, happy to do that with you. And go ahead and start entering your questions into the Q&A, into the chat feature. And Lane, if you could read those out for me, if we do have any come through, that would be great. Just makes it a little bit easier on me.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a great webinar with a lot of good tips for people to take away. We have a question that just came through. Can you elaborate on how to ask for help on how do you market yourself best? It seems like it could be fairly time intensive, and this person is looking for some tips on how to be really efficient.
In terms of, do you think it's for their job search, like marketing themselves for their job search?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. So I would ask them for like the top 3 things that you should do to put your best foot forward, and give them some examples. Like, say, is there anything, for example, that I should be putting on my resume in terms of keywords that your company or organization or the industry, that are relevant and important? So that could be one question that you ask them. Another question that you ask them could be, here's my elevator speech. How does that sound? You could ask them for feedback on that. And a third thing that you could ask them is other places that you could be networking, and how to make introductions to people there. Is the informational interview email that I sent you, was that effective, or do I need to make changes to it? So honestly, you're right. There are a lot of different things that you can ask people. I would mix it up. And maybe come up with a list of 10 different things, but ask each person like 3 questions so that you can kind of, get different advice from different people. Great
That's
question.
Great. Yeah. We had another question coming up from an extreme introvert who said, how do you suggest trying to reach out and find the culture of a company that is across the country from where you currently are?
Sure. This is where your alumni association can come in really handy to see if anyone works there, even if it's not across the country, if they're not located there, even if they're located on the East Coast or West Coast or whatever. They would know people, hopefully, that they could introduce you to. So I would start with, for example, Alumni Association, because again, like we said, those are warm leads and they're more likely to get back with you. So search based on the organization or company name.
That's great. And again, we will be sending out the link to Emory Connects. We encourage everyone to go ahead and sign up for that. It'll auto-populate your LinkedIn profile and make it super easy to search within your Emory network. So look for that in just a few minutes. We also had one person who wanted to share their actions for the week. She's going to identify warm leads for informational interviews. She's going to schedule at least one informational interview in the next week and prepare for networking event next week. So those are great
I love
takeaways.
it. Those are good ones.
Yeah, those are great action items. I think that's all we have right now. Thank you to everyone who joined us. And if you have any questions after the webinar, or if you want to listen to the recording again, do look at the last slide, admin at HallieCrawford.com, and you can reach out to Hallie directly and ask for any questions. Her website, HallieCrawford.com, is also a great place to explore some options for navigating your career search. So thank you, Hallie, for joining us. This was super helpful and very timely as we go into the holiday season. And thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to the next one.
Thanks, everyone, for being here today. Good luck.
Thank you. Bye-bye.